Hi everyone, and welcome to PalaisPopulaire. Thanks for coming here for today's artist talk that has the title Quiet Resistances, Soft Turns. I'm super honored to be here today and be able to introduce you to Charmaine Poh, Deutsche Bank Artist of the Year 2025, whose solo exhibition just opened this week at the PalaisPopulaire. Make a travel deep of your inside and don't forget me to take. So if you haven't seen it yet, please make sure to do so after the talk. We are open until 6 p.m. I'm also very glad and please welcome Jo-Lene Ong, who just arrived yesterday from Manchester. Thank you for coming and joining us for this talk. Jo-Lene works as a curator at the EC Contemporary in Manchester. EC stands for East and South Eastern Asian. Contemporary art and artistic practices are shown in this gallery. And last but not least, please welcome Sarnt Utamachote, Berlin-based filmmaker and curator, who is going to be the moderator of today's talk. And I have also the honor to be able to tell you a little bit more about Sarnt Utamachote's work and practice. Before and afterwards, I will give you the mic and we can start with the talk. Sarnt curated the exhibition Young Birds from Strange Mountains at the Schwules Museum, which ended this summer, and in Nobody's Service at Gallery Wedding, also 2024, dealing with traces of queer women, shamans, and sex workers' migration from Southeast Asia. They furthermore research about exiled Cambodian artists who studied in East Germany. This was also part of the exhibition Echoes of the Brother Countries at the HKW last year, and these locations within reach at Kunstraum Mitte. They are part of collective cruising curators, currently with the project Dissident Path at NGBK, and also part of the collective Untitled, who performed at Hamburger Bahnhof and at the Gropiusbau. They work as a film programmer for Expo's Queer Film Festival Berlin, Short Film Festival Hamburg, and Cinema Transtopia. Now with the program, The Past is Not Another Country, together in cooperation with the German Film Museum. Their short film, I Don't Want to Be Just a Memory, premiered at last year's Biennale.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Deutsche Bank. Happy to be here. Why not? And as I always say, I'm also a part of you guys. So thank you for paying me back to this card. So yes, so I'm here. I'm also tasked to running this session. I hope you won't be annoyed by my presence, but I will not hopefully not speak too much. So I will have these two princess and the queen consort, the queen, to speak more for me. So here I will introduce Jo-Lene first. Jo-Lene Ong is a curator engaging with counter-colonial worldview, speculative histories, and aesthetic strategies of resistance. Jo-Lene's curatorial approach emphasizes independent learning and connections across less networked regions. Currently, she's serving as curator of EC Contemporary in Manchester, and she was also program advisor for Seoul Media City Biennale in 2023. A co-curator of visual arts and theory at Art of Futures Amsterdam in 2020. And her research has been furthered through fellowships and residencies with Asia Cultural Council, MMCA Korea, Delphina Foundation, the Appel, Ishibashi Foundation, and Japan Foundation. So that's the Empress with many foundations. And here we have Charmaine Poh, who's an artist from Singapore, working across media, moving image, and performance to peel apart, interrogate, and hold ideas of agency, repair, and the body across worlds. She aligns herself with strategies of visibility, opacity, deviance, and futurity. She has exhibited at Singapore Art Museum, the Seoul Museum of Art, Blind Spot Gallery, Red Cat LA, Huis Mazet, and 60th Venice Biennale, Foreigners Everywhere, amongst others, foreigners. Sorry. In 2019, she was one of Forbes Asia 30s, under 30s in the art. Her work has been collected by Vega Foundation, Sun Pride Foundation, and Cadiz. She was recently named Deutsche Bank Artist of the Year, which is this throne. Based between Berlin and Singapore, she's co-founder of magazine JOM and a member of Asian Feminist Studio for Art and Research, AFSA, which is also based in Berlin. So, love. So, as we planned, I think you will start off with a presentation, and then we will also go deeper into your practice and, related artistic practice, community, diaspora, and we hopefully will open up to you for this conversation with us.
Hi, thank you so much for spending the afternoon here with me. I know for some of you, it might be the first time you're encountering my work, because this is my first exhibition in Berlin at all. And so I also feel I've been thrown into the deep end of things. But I thought I'd just start with a very quick presentation about the film The Moon is Wet and how it was made and why it looks like what it does now. So The Moon is Wet is set in Singapore. It was filmed in Singapore in April this year. And it weaves together three narratives across time. The first story is told in Hokkien by Ma Tu, the sea goddess. The second story is spoken in Cantonese by a Ma Tze, also known as a self-comb woman who had taken a vow of celibacy before migrating to Singapore and working as a domestic worker. This was in the early 20th century. And the last story is of a contemporary domestic worker from Indonesia. And so these are three narratives that sort of have connections between them across time, and three characters never meet, but they unfold at this in-between hour, between dusk and dawn, and between land and sea. So this is referencing probably the most well-known example of Singapore. If you just look up what Singapore looks like, it's the Marina Bay Sands area, the casino, and the hotel. They call it the integrated resort. And it's built on reclaimed land. So this land didn't exist 20 years ago. It didn't exist. And the very beginning of the film is Ma Tu talking about how the temple that she is in used to be right at the sea's edge, at the shore. And because of land reclamation, and Singapore has extended its landmass by a quarter, 25%, the sea is no longer visible from her temple. And so this is what has been built on reclaimed land. And I think it's really fascinating because Singapore sort of willed itself into being in many ways. It embraces the fictions that it tells itself. You know, Gardens by the Bay was constructed based on an influence of nature. So there were these really tall trees in Australia, but also these fictional trees in anime, actually. While researching, I've just found different references for how such architecture came to be. And so the references are not even like other existing structures. They straight up come from fiction, and it's very much embraced in Singapore that it's possible, and this can be willed into being. So this references the data centers. Singapore is also trying to be a data center hub for the region, and obviously data centers, as we are all increasingly aware of, take up a lot of water, a lot of resources. And I wanted to reference it also because of its connection to water. And, you know, water has defined Singapore as an island, as a city-state. And yet, over the years, this relationship with water, with the sea, has become a lot more industrialized and commercialized. And for many residents, the sea is actually not visible from where they live. So it's not this kind of organic relationship with the surroundings, but it's really quite manufactured and controlled. And most of the beaches are also artificial, with sand, once again, imported from other countries. So I just thought that this strange mix of artifice and reality that exists in Singapore, where I grew up, was really interesting to contend with. And I wanted to bring these three stories together in this kind of very already bewildering context. And these are the mates. So if you see this, the landscape here, this is right before dawn, or as dawn is breaking, and it's the intertidal zone where it was extreme low tide on that day. And so my shoots were scheduled according to low tides, because I wanted to have this kind of metaphor of in-betweenness, you know, between land and sea. And like, I feel that, like, if there was any kind of like portal in the land of Singapore where it could be a dreamscape, it would be this kind of in-between spaces. And so I just thought it was so poetic to have, when I first started taking walks along the intertidal zones, to me that was so striking. And also the creatures there that exist, they are the first to perish when land reclamation takes place. And so I draw this parallel between the lives that the characters hold in their hand and the histories of these characters that have been sort of swept aside in you know, winds of change and mainstream narratives or state-driven narratives. So, and of course, the destruction of land reclamation is something that is so violent, and I draw the parallels to the lives that I also see lost in our in this world today. So much of the film is shot, like I said, in this context, and that also meant that when I filmed, it was according to the elements. You know, I scheduled my shoot according to the tides. It's like chasing the moon, and also meant waking up at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. to begin shooting at these hours. And so it was very much according to what was uncontrollable. It wasn't not at all like a studio shoot or something that had many kind of contained elements, which was exciting but exhausting also for everyone involved. And so I feel very, very thankful for a crew that was willing to go through all of this with me. Yeah. We can talk about song maybe a bit later. I'll just go through some of the other points first. This is the third story of Monique, the domestic worker from Indonesia. Yeah, because I know in the film there are so many things happening and so many visuals, and if you don't get certain background context, I still hope that the kind of emotive quality of the film said something. But just so you know, that this is an oil refinery in Singapore. It's offshore. So Singapore has this island that was constructed out of several islands and so merged together through land reclamation. It's called Jurong Island, and on this island it's just oil refineries, and these lights are on 24/7. So we were there and happened to see these lights, and it just felt like a city, an entire city of oil refineries. And the explosion you see towards the end of the film is actually taken from the land reclamation process, the process of sucking up land, sucking up water, making the land sort of like converge upon itself, and having to blow up land. This is all part and parcel of the land reclamation process. And so some behind the scenes photographs. Yeah, as you can see, just a lot of umbrellas and sunscreen and hats. And it was not a glamorous shooting at all, but it was incredibly satisfying, and we were so lucky to have the weather hold up for us for all of those days. And also while planning the shoot, because I had to go back to Singapore for it, we realized that we had planned the shoot. On one of those days, it was Ma Zu's birthday procession at the temple. So we were so incredibly just aligned with everything that we wanted to say. And my producer, Soph, that's the person squatting over there, and she's in the crowd, in the audience. But Soph has been amazing film producer, who has always encouraged me to do what I want, even though it's not the most convenient thing. Yes, so we brought a loom to the shore as well because of the background of Ma Tu as a human, as Lin Mo Niang was also weaving at the loom when she got this premonition of saving the lives, that helped her to save the lives of the men in her family. And this is, the actual karaoke bar where we shot. And I think we were panicking here, something happened to the camera. But I mean, these are places that I feel so much for, I think, in Singapore, and places that I don't think people see very often, because I think what is portrayed in the media, like Crazy Rich Asians or Westworld, is very limited and also bankrolled by the Singapore Tourism Board, by the way. This is a temple, a Ma Tu temple that I had discovered 10 years ago, when Ma Tu was actually a lot more celebrated and part and parcel of street possessions. This was in the 70s, when a medium dressed up as Ma Tu. So these characters, like the Mate, also have this long-term engagement with Singapore, even as migrants. And a lot of the Mate would work as domestic workers in households in Singapore, and many of them were for the British colonial families who were working in Singapore. Yes. So after The Moon is Wet, you see these 3 photographs on the wall, and I just wanted to say how when I first encountered the Mate, this was 10 years ago, and 10 years later, I managed to make The Moon is Wet, to imagine what life would have been like when they were young. And so at that time, I didn't even make films, and I was only using photography. And so I am just sometimes amazed at how things can take their own time, but eventually some of those will come back to you. And that's what my practice has been like. I will always remember this Mata telling me how she would cook rice to last her 3 days so that she didn't have to use electricity, because the Mata that I met were living in these low-income rental flats in Singapore's Chinatown. And this was 10 years ago. They were already in their 80s or 90s by that time. I think I'll open it up now to Sarnt and Jo-Lene. I don't know how long I was talking for, but thank you very much for listening.
I mean, if you have any urgent questions or thoughts, you can also. But I want to actually also, I like what you said, actually, that you also, maybe some first simple things, you show places that you don't see so often from image of Singapore. And I would even add more that you get to hear what you don't hear so often about even Singapore, right? The history of migration, but also gender, labor that is happening. And I want to also point out that, the languages you see in this video work, the 3 languages, also signify your biography. Because sometimes if you, let's say you are German, this exhibition in Germany, they tend to Chinesisch. No. It's not Chinese. Guys, it's Hokkien, Cantonese, and Bahasa Indonesia. Maybe you could go into also how this language reflect yourself and the relationship that you have with the film.
Yeah, so in Singapore, language is very much connected to ethnic identity. Since there are 4 main languages: English, Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil. And there was this sort of like 30-year, there was a 30-year ban on dialect, Chinese dialect, so like Hokkien, Teochew, Cantonese, Hainanese, etc., on television and radio, because the government wanted to promote Mandarin as this kind of economic future of Singapore, and also a form of, I guess, national unity, whereas dialect represented the very heterogeneous past and the regions of China where migrants had come from. So my grandparents and my parents speak dialect, but they never taught it to me. And so I only picked it up because, as a child, you slowly learn when people are scolding you or talking about you in a different language. And so I have very, very limited knowledge of Hokkien and Cantonese, but I wanted to bring it back. And also with Bahasa Indonesia, it's slightly different from Malay, but there are some similarities. But I think Singapore being this port city, and it continues to be so, so many people come from around the region, and their languages sort of like, they're not in language policy, they're just sort of like in everyday life. And that is very much the case for migrant domestic workers who come from around the region and who replaced the Mazes in the 70s.
Yeah, so the part about the languages is also something, all these specificities is something that I recognize and I really appreciate. So Charmaine and I are both originally from Singapore and Malaysia. So these are neighboring nation states that briefly for 2 years was one nation, actually. We broke up in 1963. Yeah. And in many ways, the social politics is similar but opposite side of the coin, kind of. So I would say that the majority in power would be the Chinese diaspora, which has a long roots, the diasporas, the Indian and Chinese diasporas in both Malaysia and Singapore. Whereas the political power is being held by the native Malay communities in Malaysia. But the migration routes, like I think if you'd indulge me in this brief history, I think in Southeast Asia, most of the Chinese migration came from the regions that spoke the southern main languages, like the Hakka, Cantonese, Hokkien, Teochew. I mean, they're in southern China. And so when I went through the exhibition, I was so excited to hear Hokkien, because you don't even hear Hokkien that much in Malaysia and Singapore anymore. It's a dialect that doesn't even really have a written form, but there are some younger generations that are trying to revive it. And then you went a step further. So because it's this dialect that lives in a very domestic vernacular register, the High Hokkien version, where you're able to speak of more formal things in a more poetic way, is, say, completely lost to like my generation. Maybe my grandmother might know a bit, right? But you've actually recovered that in parts of the film The Moon is Wet. And so these specificities are something that I think if people from our region, and I think like Sant and I, we caught it and appreciated it. So I just wanted to ask you, how did you maybe balance what to reveal, how much to explain, how to kind of bring these specificities to honor that they're disappearing in our homelands, while also kind of being generous enough to the audience in Berlin in your kind of like Berlin debut?
Thank you. I'm not sure I'm very generous actually. But I think it was more of like feeling as though, well, or trying to understand whether the film could still say something even if people didn't have the full background information through the poetics of language. Because some of these references also have taken a very long time to uncover, and I don't think what I was trying to do with this installation was trying to give an explainer. I think it was trying to use storytelling, whether it's cantopop or folk poems or different genres of music, to try and give a feeling of desire, of loss. I mean, the catalog goes into a lot more detail about where these sources are from. Yes, and this High Hokkien was taken from a book of folk poems from migrants who were coming to Singapore from China, and we had such trouble actually finding someone who could interpret the words correctly, because the kind of like vernacular that's common in Singapore right now, it's a very everyday kind of market Hokkien. It's not like Soph and I call it the temple Hokkien, which is like basically what the kind of mediums or opera troupes would be able to speak, but not lay people. Yeah.
I think you also achieve some of this through cinematic language, the way you bring in non-linear time to weave in the different stories of the different generations. I mean, Mazu's a goddess, quite timeless, and then the Majie's migration was around 1930s to 70s, and then Monique, the contemporary, the current domestic worker of present times would be, I think the wave began 90s to now, primarily I think Indonesia and Philippine women domestic migrant workers would come to countries like Singapore and Malaysia. And okay, I lost track because I'm yapping too much. Wait, let me go back. Yeah, the cinematic language. So I think there was something about, I mean, when I was walking through it, I also tried to imagine what an audience that didn't happen to share this cultural background would be experiencing, or what kind of questions they might have and what they might kind of take home with, or questions but I felt like through performance and presence, and in this non-linear time, the way you brought in like the queerness and femininity, like through the bodies on screen, maybe you could talk about your strategies of like what was staged, what was kind of recorded footage of like actual processions and things like that. Degrees of visibility, right? Whose faces can be shown, whose faces you didn't want to show maybe. And these ideas of like a non-linear time.
I think most of the scenes had some degree of staging, apart from maybe the temple scene, which was where we had to follow the birthday procession. If you see, there was this one scene with like that's completely in red with the sounds, and that's the birthday procession. But everything else had some degree of staging, where at least we created the environment and gave some directions. But I wouldn't say that any of them were very, very tightly controlled. What was that question? Oh, yes, okay. So,
Yes, to use the microphone. Yeah, the bodies, how you framed and what to show, what you showed and what you didn't show.
yeah, I think when I was writing the character Matu in the script, I was aware that there could be this exoticization of a female mythical figure, and I think that was something that I wanted to deny the viewer, and so I didn't want to be able to have this projection of some kind of beautiful mythical figure, especially when it's showing in Europe, and so the mask, the idea of the mask came in, and so I keep saying and so, but I think visibility and opacity have been quite important in my practice, whether it's in previous works like What's Softest in the World Rushes and Runs Over What's Hardest in the World, or the Young Body Universe. So yeah, I mean, it's just become something that I integrate into my creation process.
Maybe you could briefly share with the audience how it differed across those three works, which are also downstairs in the exhibition.
Some of it is due to safety and privacy. So for a character like Monique, who is actually working as a domestic worker, it was important to protect her identity and the identity of her friends, so you don't see any faces there, as well as for the queer parents, the queer families who are worried about their children getting bullied in school. I don't think faces are always necessary in works, and with the Young Body Universe, it was about kind of confronting the viewer with this face of the 12-year-old, as glitchy as she might seem, or sort of more than human and less than human at the same time. I wanted to constantly confront the viewer or the audience and unnerve them in some way. And for me, that is the negotiation I have with myself, because I chose to use my child self in the work. And so if I was going to let my image circulate, then for me, the audience and the viewer have to give something of themselves as well. They don't get to just feel comforted, you know. So every project that I make will have this kind of negotiation. Yeah. And I feel a lot more like a very big responsibility when handling the stories of others.
Oh, thank you. I mean, we are like shooting at you from two sides. So I hope you are comfortable in this double penetration, it's called. But I love it, yes. So, no, I think what you brought out is also a touch on, if you are familiar, Trinity Minha's writings on documentary film, actually, that, she thematized that oftentimes film, media, artworks tend not to question this relationship between, two sides of the screen, the viewer and the viewed, and oftentimes documentary tend to just portray without asking why or where is a positioning of the viewer or the listener, right? So your work also give, play in this opacity to kind of also with this motif of the mask. So you will see down there in the exhibition also the mask that you let us to see the physical ones, which I find also very, very, very nice, actually. You see the mask that you see in the film as a proof, as a evidence of this way to make it unclear, yet I would even also say that it's not just the audience who are not clear, it's also ourselves, we working in diaspora, our memories from our parents are never clear how our heritage came to be. So, this is also not just you are not sure. I mean, we also not sure ourselves, no?
Yeah, that was also a point that we discussed in the interview for the catalog, that much of our ancestry is unknown. So did you have a question? I cut. No, yeah. Maybe I can shoot one more at Charmaine then. Just wanted to pick up what you brought up, like about documentary. I've also felt that through 3 of the main works that you see downstairs have an aspect of the documentary. But of course, I feel like Charmaine is shifting across the different languages and also expanding the language of documentary. Maybe one could say it's more of using essay film in particularly in The Moon is Wet. But beyond like talking about cinematic language, what I was very moved by was the physicality in the exhibition. The way I was made to move through the space, how I had to go through your legs, literally. But I like that entrance where you kind of pay almost as an altar of respect with the 2 jade bangles, which are very much like what older-ish women would wear. And then, of course, there's the younger-looking legs on the curtains that you have to go into the exhibition. Yeah, and then the screens. Like, so there's cinematic language in your film, and then there's this decision or thinking about the surface on which you want it to be projected on. And then the one I was very unexpected that I was very moved with was the stillness of the 3 photographs of the maje, the hands, the rice box that you saw. Could you take us through your journey or rather the journey that you laid out for us? Was it kind of like, were you inspired by the curviness of water, I don't know, bodies?
Yeah, thank you so much. I worked very closely with Songji Zhang, who is now in Korea, but they're based in Berlin, and they often work in theater. And I wanted to be quite intentional about creating this world that was influenced by, yes, of course, water. Oh my God.
Water made an appearance.
Yeah, I need some water. That would be great for the recording. Love that sound. But yeah, I was inspired by spaces for meditation, and yeah, I kind of like in between space, in between worlds, and so I emphasized curves, and certain colors, and you see the use of this kind of jade linen cloth as we're about to walk into The Moon is Wet, and then there's like different levels that you play with. So you're kind of encouraged to be on the ground for what's softest, to look at the jade bangles, and not always sort of be drawn to a kind of spectacle that is maybe easier to impress, I think. Yeah.
In the area where there's the mask, I felt like the lights were either, it reminded me of karaoke, like the cheap karaoke lights, and also altars. Some of the, we have like, I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like a light box but you have of some Buddhist imagery, but it has disco lights of these colors going on. So it had, like some altar vibes, but also karaoke vibes.
Altar vibes.
Yeah.
And the lights cost like €20. They're great.
Good to know. I will think about for my next show.
Yeah. I mean, I really wanted to reference these kinds of aesthetic references and material references throughout and make it cohesive. So you see the black kind of mirror sand at the start, and then later on with the mask, you also see that appear again. So there's kind of repetition that I wanted to have throughout the exhibition.
I would also feel like this aesthetics that you embrace is almost also representative of spirituality and technology in Southeast Asia. Like these two things are always intertwined. Karaoke and goddesses, Bitcoin and some ghosts, they are like always mixing up with each other. It's also something that you see very common there. So I think it's the work, the choreography of the space kind of very much go into that as well, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think while Singapore might be known for specific aesthetics, like I think it's also very superstitious place, and I think that they don't negate each other, you know, because like these geomancers are consulted before building a big kind of building that would represent Singapore's wealth. So it's all connected. They're not binary also.
When I was working in Malaysia and we have outdoor events, I literally have a special budget to call the shaman to push the rain to another geo coordinate. So I would actually tell the shaman, not like in some weird language, but like he will ask for actual Google coordinates. Like, open Google Map, tell me where's your coordinates, and then okay, I will. So it's really like one and together. And but Sarnt, you had questions.
This is also true. I want to also connect. Like this is such a weird shift from European, let's say, general practice and Asian practice. No, it's like, sorry, shaman and like praying to God is essential to opening your art project.
Yeah.
Like the rain, the flood, the sun, like everything can go so wrong. And here, like, okay, you invite politician. In Asia, we invite ghosts. So it's great.
And for the record, it worked. My event, there were like rain clouds coming, but throughout the whole event, it was dry. It was just like at the periphery. So I found it hard not to believe. I mean, I'm not the most, superstitious, but after that moment,
I mean, we also prayed to Matu before shooting. Yeah, like at the intertidal zone. We all held chopsticks. Yeah.
Love. I think that shows so much of relationship also, you have with not just like the friends, the relatives, but also maybe you would say non-human subject, maybe you say nature, maybe you say chance, it depends on how you define these relationships as well. No? I think for the time, I wonder if anyone want to ask, I think I would need to run to you with the microphone, which I can also do, or you do it, I don't know, yeah. So feel free to raise your hand, don't be shy. You are not being seen by the camera anyway, so you can say whatever you want and our face will react to it, yeah. Anyone have question? Just go. If not, then
you have one about songs, maybe?
Yes, I was actually gonna bring that up. I mean, I actually maybe I would link back to even jade, no? Because the two jades that you see first on the ground, I find it also very, very like something when you put it on the ground. Actually, you could almost step on it, but you should not, right? And maybe you could tell us about it because it's referred to a film, the twin bracelets, and the two jades and the maje, the photograph. I think the jade bracelets that you see are the link between 2 or 3 of your works even.
Yeah, so this Cantonese song that you hear in the middle of the film, The Moon is Wet, is sung by Anita Mui, who is like a legend in Hong Kong and across the Cantopop world, and it's the soundtrack for this other film released in 1991 called Twin Bracelets that was about Swan sisterhood in southern China. And so it was really beautiful to have discovered that at the time of making the Moon is Wet, and to show that these stories have been told and been existing for a long time across time. Yeah.
Maybe you can explain what Swan sister is.
Women who would declare kind of wow, how do I even describe it? It's like beyond siblings, beyond friendship, a togetherness in life, and this is regardless of whether they had husbands or not. Yeah.
Situationships, if you would say in a contemporary term, no? A little bit.
Maybe in art world we can say some sort of kinship lah.
Yeah, kinship.
Situationship, kinship, somethingship.
Yeah.
But isn't a situationship about lack of commitment?
That's true. This is super committed, right?
Oh, I miss it though, like pre-colonial situationship. Yeah. And it's also a very famous song. Yeah, it's the Cantonese song like, was also very popular among Southeast Asia. Like this song that you hear in The Moon is Wet, there's also a Thai version of it. I can sing it, but not the same lyrics. And, it's also fascinating that, like I walk into your show knowing that it's your work, but I realize that's also part of my childhood in your work that I didn't even expect it. And I think that shows a transnational ties that we have as a region. Beyond the queerness, is this even more the heritage ties that we have. Yeah. Do we have other interesting thought, comments? Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Sant. I was wondering if you could elaborate a bit on the staging of The Moon is Wet, because I think for audience who have experienced it will recognize the cylinder shape, and also how the seating is arranged. The audience, they cannot see each other. They can only, look at the screen or the gap between the screen. And then the way, the curtain is designed, I've noticed almost everyone has, come through it not very clean, because they will take a piece with them, kind of entangled on their clothes or even hair, and until they need to almost like ritually remove that, piece of thread. So I'm sure there's a lot of thinking, behind all of that. And probably there are also some cultural references in this. So I wonder if you could share with us.
I think thank you for that. I think the beaded curtain, for example, is something that's quite common across the region. And I wanted to have this veil, but also not have it completely opaque. And this kind of string curtain was a way of, is a reference to so many things, like bridal chambers, like living rooms, kitchens, and people having to be intentional about walking through a corridor, a space, a walkway. And I wanted people to not be able to see the full film at one time. They had to sort of turn around, and it's quite obviously, I think, a parallel to history and how we are not able to have this like bird's eye view, and we shouldn't expect to have a bird's eye view. We have to understand that we will only know partial parts of history that are revealed to us. And we don't have to know everything, and we're not entitled to know everything as well.
Yes. Do we have more? Just raise it.
Thank you very much. You already started touching up on a bit lightly now, and maybe you could go a little more into detail about the maybe philosophical underpinnings of your work, because there's a lot of water, there's a lot of flow elements, there's a lot of, I know that your other work referenced a Taoist work in the title. Maybe you could share a little bit about how this played, or if this played a role in The Moon is Wet.
Yeah, thank you. I think so, but I think the thing about Taoism is that a lot of it is about practice. It's about the practice of storytelling. It's about the way one moves through the world. It's in the way narratives are pieced together, that show an interconnectedness. And so with this kind of intuition, and intuition is also very much emphasized in Taoism, I tried to write a script in this kind of way that shows the interconnectedness of things, that shows a repetition of time, of loops of lives that don't have a hierarchy, and where histories repeat itself, and time is non-linear. And I guess that would be maybe a fundamental way that informed how I came up with The Moon is Wet, or conceived The Moon is Wet. Yeah.
I mean, also a quick question, because we also have one more element of the show, which is when you literally walk into it and you almost step on it, is the quote that you have on the floor, right? Before the circles there. Maybe you could tell us, what that quote means to you. Is also, I have Lao Tzu in it, no? Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's actually 3 lines from the ending of a speech by this Canadian writer, Madeleine Tien. And it was an award speech. So she was getting a literary award in last year, and she gave the prize money to the Lebanese Red Cross, to Palestine Children's Relief. And this is how she ended her speech. And you can find the speech online. It's really beautiful. And these 3 lines are quotes from Lao Tzu. Heavy is the root of light is from Lao Tzu, who wrote the Taoist text. How we stand here is important. How we breathe is from William Stafford, who is a pacifist American poet. And I wanted these encounters in the world to inform my work that I'm presenting now. And it just so happened that they also spoke to my philosophies and how I make work. And the title itself is from an email exchange with a friend the title of the exhibition, Make a Travel, is taken from an email exchange with a friend whose first language is Turkish. And I found that the title, these words were perfect, and I could not have come up with that. You know, they existed because his mother tongue was not English. So I wanted these very personal encounters to be present in my work as well, even as I work historically and go into archives and have been thinking about things that have existed long before the last few years. But I wanted to give some room for our life today to inform how we practice as artists and what we show as artists.
Totally, yes. We have more questions, thoughts, remarks, feelings. Feelings are valid too. I mean, really. Don't be shy. Maybe on that, I think it's also.
No, I just want to say, is this like the first time many of you are seeing my work? Cool.
No, we love. It's
Thank
called
you.
Love
Thank
at
you
First
for
Sight.
giving me your time. Love at first.
Love at first sight, honestly.
So sweet.
I mean, I think also like it's important to also see your work, your references as a part of a larger, I would say, diasporic queer practices. You know, there are also even some artists that I would even refer to or put you in relationship. You know, Tôi Hen Nguyen Chi would be one. Is a Vietnamese artist at exhibition in the Berlin Biennale, the version before at Hamburger Bahnhof. You know, our talks on the relationship between mother and the ocean. You know, so in this motif of the ocean, there's a very prevalent of your work. Also in The Moon is Wet, it's something that is almost summoned, evoked in this space. And I think we have so many artists that deals with this sensitive topic with such a approach, with the distance as well. So if you want to add anything on to.
No, I shall try the audience again.
Yes.
Well, maybe I'll ask one on your behalf. If it were my first time seeing your work, I would be very curious to know a bit more about your practice, from maybe photography to film to installation, and also the other practices of Charmaine Poh.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess my first encounter with the arts was probably through acting. When I was 12, acting on Singapore television, and being completely unready for it. But I think it was really through the camera in university that I began to realize what it was like to frame the world and to be present with the world. Instead of being seen, I could see, and that was what photography taught me. So I was very focused on photography for the first maybe 5 years before I began to make films and to go back into performances. When I made Good Morning Young Body, which is the first work in the Young Body Universe series, it was also a challenge for me to reinsert my performative self and my experiences into a work to present to a wider public. So when I was thinking about how to bring this exhibition together, I wondered whether there was this kind of rift between the Young Body universe and some of my other works. But I really hoped that through the flow of the exhibition, I was able to bridge that gap and to show that these explorations are concurrent, they're not linear either, and they're all part of the same mind and the same person.
It's part of the soft turns, because actually, I mean, all of these curves and edges that you create are all this together somehow. Maybe for the last part, if you don't ask, do we have like future projects, something exciting awaits you, also both of you, actually? Well,
in 2 weeks, I will show some of these works from the Young Body universe and a new film that I made as part of that universe called A is for Andra. I will show as part of a 2-person exhibition in Goethe Institute, New York, opening on the 24th of September. So if you happen to be in the US or you have friends there, first of all, wish me luck getting through immigration. And then secondly, please tell your friends to come.
I think I will just use this last mic moment to say thank you to everyone, especially to PalaisPopulaire and to Sarnt and to Charmaine for
Thank you.
inviting me through this journey, because we have been chatting since the interview for the catalog. So I will leave you with look out for the catalog.
when is it coming out?
We hope October.
So print it. So yeah, thank you everyone for
Thank you very
coming,
much.
and please stay, please talk to them, don't be shy, and thank you Deutsche Bank, and enjoy your art weeks. Mwah.